Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at War update. And as we're set to deliberate the latest developments vis-a-vis the Islamic Republic of Iran, the situation in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and more, let's first introduce our experts for today, to include our TV7 editor-at-large, Mr. Amir Oren. Next to him, Brigadier or retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, formerly an Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. And last but not least, Hazem El-Jabra, who formerly served as a senior advisor at the U.S. State Department. It's great to see all three of you. And Mr. Oren, today we mark date 629 since the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates launched their atrocities upon the southern communities of Israel. What is the current state of play vis-a-vis the Gaza Strip, and to what degree is there light at the end of the tunnel with regard to a potential negotiated solution?
Well, there seems to be a flicker of light, both because Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff has indicated as much without going into details. And also, if one takes at face value an announcement that Prime Minister Netanyahu made in a filing to the district court, sitting in judgment in his corruption trial, he asked for a recess in his own testimony, where he is being cross-examined for the next 2 weeks because of pending regional and global developments, quote unquote. Again, he didn't go into details, but perhaps what he means is that there could be a deal in the making, announcements to be made, hostages to be released. So yes, there is some hope, especially since Witkoff also said that there are more candidates, without specifying, to join the Abraham Accords. So maybe we are on the cusp of a new phase in the Middle East with normalization with Saudi Arabia, perhaps Syria and Lebanon. This may sound perhaps too much to believe, but we have seen that overnight developments can surprise us.
Absolutely. Well, General Kimmett, I'd like to hear your take on the Gaza Strip. Naturally, we do hear both Arab leaders, including the Arab League and other Arab institutions in the region, speaking about a push to try and reinvigorate a diplomatic discourse. To what degree is this just another cycle after the hopes that the decisive defeat of the Islamic Republic of Iran in the 12-day war will bring about some hopeful negotiations?
Well, I think the U.S. is a little bit preoccupied right now with the situation inside of Iran. Obviously, Witkoff is focused primarily on talking to Arakchi, trying to get the Iranians back to the table. Candidly, I think that the specific issue of Gaza would be wrapped up into the long-standing United States position that when you negotiate with the Iranians, you not simply talk about the nuclear program, but you add in missiles and proxy operations as well. And Gaza at this point is a subset of the proxy operations. And candidly, I'm not suggesting the United States has taken its eye off of Gaza, but it's much lower in the priority than it was, say, 4 weeks ago.
Absolutely. One of those subsets, of course, is the situation in Lebanon. Mr. Jabra, when we're talking about the situation in Beirut, give us a little bit of an understanding. To what degree were there implications or direct implications from the 12-day war when we're talking about the advancement of state institutions to consolidate power over many of those territories that have been for decades under Hezbollah control?
Jonathan, good morning, and excellent question. This is part of the BDA, the battle damage assessment, that we're still trying to figure out. How were the proxies damaged? How was the relationship damaged? How was Iran's ability to fund, support, and command these proxies have changed? It's still very unclear, but I will tell you the morale is low, which is very important. Um, Unfortunately, the LAF, or the Lebanese Armed Forces, and the Lebanese government at large is still bashful when it comes to fulfilling their obligations to the ceasefire agreement that was signed 7 months ago now. It's something that we've pushed for continuously, and former envoy Megan Ortegas have worked on continuously. We need more from the Lebanese armed forces. The Israeli defense forces still need to conduct operations right now in Lebanon to protect the northern border. And that is something that needs to stop, because this was agreed upon, that the Lebanese military will take over these operations, will do a mop up, and will start building for a better future, a better, at least a demilitarized zone between Lebanon and Israel, and with that Hezbollah's influence. So it's very, very important to continue pressuring the Lebanese armed forces and the Lebanese government to fulfill again their obligations. This is not something new we're asking for. This is something that was agreed upon month and month ago, but was never fulfilled. Going back to the root question, I do not think the relationship will ever be back the same. I mean, this is the second tangible defeat to Iran. First defeat was defeating Hezbollah in Lebanon, and now Iran is defeated on their own territory. The future should be different than the past in that for that relationship.
General Kimmett, you wanted to react, and if I may also add a little bit to this, to what degree did the fact that Hezbollah not acquiesce to Iran's request to join the fight against Israel impact the unique relationship that this Shiite organization had with the Ayatollah regime in Tehran?
Well, in many ways, it just doesn't have the capacity. It no longer can muster either the missiles or the forces to make much of a difference. The overall question, though, is not only a military one in the South, but at what point can that state within a state of southern Lebanon actually be blended into the whole of Lebanon? The fact of the matter is you can't replace something with nothing, and the people of southern Lebanon still don't have confidence in the central government, still don't have confidence in the Beirut government. So candidly, I think it's going to be a long time before, number one, the government inside of Beirut actually starts truly acting like a government. And number two, when it becomes a better alternative in that state without a state, within a state, to what Hezbollah has been providing, not only in terms of ideology, but in terms of social services. So I'm not sure that we're going to see southern Lebanon be considered part of Lebanon or think of themselves as part of Lebanon for quite some time.
Thank you, General. Mr. Oren, if you could also add your take on Lebanon briefly, but let's also divert our attention to Syria. Since yesterday we had, of course, here General Sofrin and General Rosen. We spoke also briefly about Syria. You spoke also about the fact that Israeli National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi mentioned direct communications with the Damascus regime of al-Julani. But nonetheless, I did some check into the true reality on the ground. And apparently in Northern Command and a number of top generals here in Israel see the situation quite differently when it comes to reality on the ground in Syria, where there are many groups of terror affiliations to the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and other groups that have also ties to the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood, operating quite vigorously, not only against Israel, but also against the regime.
So first about Lebanon, let me add just a short historical context. For almost 70 years now, Lebanon did not have an effective central government. Ever since Egypt's Nasser started subverting the entire Arab Middle East, and especially in 1958, when he took over in a confederation, Syria. There was the coup in Iraq. There were threats to Hussein's rule over Jordan, and the Lebanese crisis, which ended with the US Marines landing at Beirut. And later, even before Hezbollah became this state within the state, which General Kimmich referred to, there was, of course, the Fatah land. After the Palestinians were expelled from Jordan following Black September in 1970, and again in June of 71, the PLO ruled South Lebanon, and Beirut had no rule over it. And then the civil war, the Syrians coming in after the Israeli invasion, the Shiites. And this is probably the first time where neither Syria, nor Iran, nor anyone else can have a chokehold over Beirut if the Lebanese find the power within themselves to resist. So yes, there is hope there. Now, as for Syria, from looking at it from the narrow Israeli perspective, let Giuliani handle his internal problems, including with the terrorists, the militias, wherever. He doesn't have right now the attention or the resources to rebuild the Syrian army and threaten Israel. From the Israeli perspective, this is not the worst case.
Indeed, I think it's important to highlight that Israel continues to maintain a strategic defensive posture, which, of course, has to do also with protecting the minorities south of Damascus, to include the Druze, to include the Christians there, and others. Something that, of course, also focuses on the strategic depth of field that Israel has limitations from its perspective, but nonetheless, the M5 is a strategic route going south from Damascus into Deraa and from there into Jordan, something that, of course, has also quite the significance. But Mr. Al-Jabra, I'd like to hear your take on the unique effort by State Department to bring about giving Al-Julani a chance, so to speak, as President Trump has pledged to do, and Secretary Rubio has stated time and again that there are excessive efforts to stabilize this regime in order to see whether or not it's viable. Where are we in this process?
Good question. Let me land a point on Lebanon very quickly. It's an important topic. It deserves its own episode. But here's the thing with Lebanon. Here's my frustration with Lebanon. We've heard time and time again from the Lebanese people and the Lebanese parties that if Hezbollah is defeated and there's a new government in Lebanon, all the problems will magically disappear. Well, they got what they wanted. And we still are back to the same problems and the same divisions within the Lebanese factions. So again, it's their job. It's not Israel's job. It's not the U.S. job to go and build their country for them. We're not in the nation building business anymore, and Israel does not have the bandwidth to build nations in the region. They need to get with the program and start building their country, at least by beginning by combating terrorism on their own territory. Let's segue back to Syria. Here's the issue. We do not know which direction the country is going to go. There are very positive signs that we've seen in the early days, at least. Great promises, amazing promises. No, we were promised the sun and the moon, especially the American team that went recently and semi-reopened the embassy. There was like a ceremonial raising of the flag. And that team met with Shara, and Shara said, "Hey, I'm here to do business. I'm here to play ball." However, we're seeing very concerning signals from the ground, including a bombing of a church a couple of days ago. We're trying to stabilize Syria because a stable Syria is integral to the stability of the region. But it's a finite amount of work we can do, as Mr. Oren just mentioned. We need to see what Shah Jalani, whatever name you choose to call him, comes up with at the end of the day. What I would like to see at the very least at this point, a security agreement between Damascus and Jerusalem, narrating, few points that the Syrian government will not attack Israel, will not allow its territory be used to attack Israel, and will not aid any third party in Lebanon or elsewhere to attack Israel. Simple stuff, really. That's all is needed to start the process. However, I'm not of a mind that Syria is ready for the Abraham Accords. They're not. Pure and simple. I mean, we can fool ourselves and say they are. That's going to take a long time before they can reach a point like UAE or Bahrain where they can engage in such endeavor. But at this moment, we need to address the security concerns, and there needs to be a commitment by the Syrian government to actually implement such agreement on the ground, including what we've seen of usage of Syrian territory to launch missiles onto Israel.
Gerald Kimmett, I'd like to hear your take on this as well. But, I'm under the impression that the main focus when we're talking about Syria, at least from Washington's perspective at hand, and I think our mutual friend, Dr. Mike Duran, has also wrote extensively on this with regard to having a so-called buffer between the two American allies, namely Turkey and Israel. President Trump just met President Recep Tayyip Erdogan during the NATO summit in The Hague, during the course of which Syria was also topping this discussion. To what degree do you have insight onto this, and do you expect there to be more of a robust engagement when we're talking about seeking to stabilize Syria?
Well, I don't want my own biases to get in the way, but I'll let my biases get in the way. I think we will continue as a government to try to engage with Syria until we're inevitably disappointed. Look, the fact remains is we know which way this is going. We've seen this before. We've already started to see it with Jelani. You can tell the difference between truly a representative government that does what the people tell it to do, and an authoritarian government that tells its government to do, and then an authoritarian regime that tells its people what to do. And you can already see that Jelani is starting to inflict, if not his authoritarianism on the people, certainly his ideology on the people in a slow and creeping manner. So my personal view is don't get confused by those nice suits he's wearing. The United States will eventually be disappointed because there is no deal to be struck there. When you are a government with an ideology, you're not looking for deals. You're looking for an opportunity to cause your ideology to be spread through the people.
I couldn't agree with you more, but he identifies himself as reformed, right? So we need to take that at least into account, irrespective of what he does actually in the field and in his various institutions. Mr. Al-Jabra, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, here's part of the issue right now. There is no illusion in Washington, at least, that we're getting an authoritarian regime in Damascus. But I think the tolerance for such regime is a lot higher today than it was years ago. The other problem we're dealing with is that the relationship was outsourced to Saudi Arabia and Turkey with little management from what I've seen so far. And that is a major concern because one of the things I've raised recently in a meeting, well, what are we doing to make sure education in Damascus and Syria is not going to produce the next generation of terrorists? And the room was like, oh, well, the Saudis are taking care of that. And I asked, are they? They're like, well, we believe so. I think they're very good at that. I'm like, well, who's managing this process? Who's managing this transition? And there seems to be very little management happening out of Washington, and that concerns me a lot.
Well, let's divert our attention now to Iran, since we don't have very much time left, roughly 6 minutes to speak about Iran proper. Mr. Oren, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has released a pre-recorded film from a bunker, which all intelligence agencies know quite well where it is. But nonetheless, he declared that President Trump is exaggerating. Israel took a beating, and the Islamic Republic of Iran has prevailed over all of its enemies and is standing tall. What have I missed?
Well, apparently Khamenei is becoming the new Nasrallah, who after 2006 pre-recorded all of his messages from a bunker. And actually, it worked for 18 years or so until Israel decided to make a short shrift of it. So Khamenei is not certain that he will not be hunted down during the ceasefire. And this is the framework before we get into the content. Now, there are indicators that the attack on the Al Udeid base was orchestrated, coordinated in order to minimize any casualties and damage. Even the time of the attack was decided, agreed upon between Iran, Qatar, and the United States. But this doesn't, of course, impede the supreme leader's boast that he is holding all of the key interests and partners of the United States in the Gulf in the palm of his hand, and he can do damage to them the next time. This is bravado. Now, as for what will happen inside Iran, the regime survived. This is the most basic and important point. All the rest, they can absorb, they can sustain. Whoever hoped that we will see some popular rising with or without outside support, we're disappointed. Obviously, the nuclear file is not at the top of the agenda right now. They may get to it later. They will try to reassert their control.
General Kimmett and Mr. Jabra, you have 1.5 minutes each. General Kimmett, we'll start with you.
Very simple. The United States will push for negotiations. Those negotiations will not succeed. The Iranians are not about to give up an opportunity or grab an opportunity to give up their ideology. So I think, candidly, this argument about was Fordo destroyed or not, we'll find out in a couple of weeks when the United States strikes it again.
Very interesting. Mr. Al-Jabra?
I share Mr. Oren's disappointment in how the war ended. I was under the impression, we were all under the impression that there was a plan in place, and the Israeli and American sides agreed that the end of the war should see Iran at the negotiating table and giving up everything, their nuclear program, their missile program, their ballistics program, and their support for terrorism. That was the information we thought, or the impression we were under. I feel the end of the war became a penny too short and a day late. But again, this is a station in a prolonged war. This is just a battle, and the battle was successful. The United States did very well destroying the facilities, and Israel had an amazing campaign of extreme air dominance. We haven't seen this. Yeah, the audience need to understand. We haven't seen anything like this since World War II. This was beautiful. The pressure needs to keep going because we have goals that are still not accomplished. And until these goals are accomplished and Iran gives up what they need to give up, the pressure should continue by Israel and the United States.
General Kimmett, I'd like to return to you since naturally the approach you highlighted with a return of strikes in 2 weeks is the Clausewitzian approach, if I may, going from diplomacy to acts of war and back. Now, I agree with you completely that the Ayatollah regime has not renounced Twelver Shiite Islam, and it doesn't seem to be in its books anytime soon. What type of renewed campaign do you see within the next couple of weeks?
Well, first of all, I just want to correct our friend. Israel did not have the greatest air dominance since World War II. Israel had the greatest air dominance in history, plain and simple. On the second point, I think unless we go back to President Taco Trump, which is, Trump always chickens out. Look, if the Iranians are unwilling to strike a deal, I think the only way that we will continue to adhere to the U.S. policy of Iran never having a nuclear weapon will be another set of strikes conducted by the U.S., probably accompanied by the Israelis. And as our colleague said, that last battle is the last battle. The next battle is the next battle. And to use Clausewitzian terms, politics is just an extension of war is just an extension of politics by other means. And we'll just have to continue the fight. Otherwise, we're renouncing our objectives.
Okay. Well, General Kimmett, Mr. Al-Jabra, Mr. Oren, thank you very much for all of your insights. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.
My name is Doron Gavish, and my background, 30 years of serving in the Israeli Air Force. My last job, I was the commander of the Israeli Air and Missile Defense during the introduction of the Iron Dome to the defense of Israel. All of this allows me really to be part of the team here in TV7. It is super important to have such a platform. We talk about the global situation, we talk about Israel and those different angles which are relevant to the discussion.